I'm Joel Evans. I'm a distinguished professor in the Zoff School of Business, and we have a distinguished panel that's going to be here tonight with me. Gary Huth, who's the principal economist and labor market analyst with the New York State Department of Labor. Fred Burke, who's the executive director of the Career Center at Hofstra, and Barbara Church-Kattan, who's the director of the graduate career services for the Zoff School at Hofstra. And I'm going to start things off. So these are the topics that I'm going to talk about. Some general hints, some long-term trends, hot long-term business career opportunities, some data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, reference to the site that New York State has. It's called Looking for a Job. LinkedIn. How many of you are familiar with LinkedIn? How many of you are on LinkedIn? Okay, by the end of tonight, I got to get all of you to get into LinkedIn. Then some concluding remarks, and you have the handouts that I'm going to be talking about. You have an article that I had written called Self-Branding, and you have a list of the URLs if you decide that you're interested in looking at them after tonight. So I guess the first general hint is to be proactive. In this market, nothing's going to come out after us, as I'm sure you depressingly know already. We have to be rather aggressive in terms of how we approach things. We have to think in terms of long term, no matter how bleak things look in the short term. In the long term, with some of the statistics I'm going to show you, things look really bright. I mean, over the next 10 years, the predictions in the United States, there's going to be about 15 million new jobs, and then you have the replacement jobs of all us baby boomers who are going to be retiring. So you're talking about maybe 40 or 50 million new jobs between now and 2018. So what we have to do is, do everything that we can now to prepare ourselves for the long term in terms of developing the skills, the experience that we can acquire. But the long term really does look good. For some of us, I know that, or for some of you, it's hard to look at the long term, the short term. Try to stay upbeat, don't defeat yourself. I've had a lot of people that I've worked with that it has been really tough to keep that in mind. They've sent out hundreds of resumes to try to get things. It took my daughter a year and a half to get a job after getting out of law school, so I understand how tough it is out there. But the key thing is to not give up. I mean, there are postings that go on all the time. There are a lot of opportunities. The internet is marvelous, so you just have to keep plugging at it and not get too down. We have to be open-minded and flexible. If we had a training as an accountant, there are a lot. What does that mean? What other things can we do? Can we be an actuary? Can we get into financial services? So I think we have to think sometimes outside of the box and be more flexible and not say it's got to be this or else. We need to do a SWOT analysis of ourselves. This is a very popular concept in business schools. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So strengths and weaknesses are kind of taking a look at ourselves and saying, what am I good at? What am I good at? What do I like? So what are my strengths? Am I a people person? Am I a numbers person? Am I a risk taker? Am I a risk avoider? What are the things that I do well? Conversely, what are the things that I'm weak in? Maybe that I need to improve, or maybe things that I just like to stay away from. Maybe I'm not the people person. Maybe I'm not the numbers person. So we need to do this assessment of ourselves internally in terms of what we like to do and what we don't like to do and what we're good and bad at. The opportunities and threats is trying to understand the externals, what's going on in the economy. Because however the economy looks, as you're going to see, there are still job areas that look very promising even now. So we have to analyze the different opportunities that exist. And we have to understand the threats that face us, so that if we're looking to make a career switch, we want to make a career switch into one where there are going to be growth opportunities in the future, not one that's going to give us a hard time again after we've made the switch. So there's a lot on this SWOT analysis in the article that's there. We need to be realistic. This is 2010. For better or worse, it's not 2007 in terms of the opportunities that are there and the salaries that are there. And we have to be realistic for what the times are. The bright side is that the inflation rate is close to zero. But we have to be realistic about what's out there. And I'm not trying to sound depressing, by the way. I really am upbeat over a longer period of time. Right now, we are in a tough period. We need to create a clear positioning message about yourself. That is, in essence, the gist of the article that you have, that I have written. answering this next question. If you were to go and talk to a company, why should we consider you out of all the candidates we have to choose from? What is the skill set that you have? You meet the minimum requirements that they're looking for, as well as more than that. So this gets back to that SWOT analysis again. You know, what are the things that I'm really good at, and I want to focus on them. So we need to spend a lot of time on our resumes because of that. Network, network, network. We really need to talk to every person that we possibly know, every friend, every associate. We have to be assertive. We have to not think, oh wow, this makes me a failure. It doesn't make anybody a failure. It just means you're using good communication skills and you're networking with the people that you've met and you've worked with over the years. So we really do have to talk to virtually everybody we know. Engage in what I would call the law of large numbers on the internet. The internet has a tremendous amount of job sites in all different types of areas, and they have postings like crazy. Yes, the law of large numbers means that we can go out and we can literally send out hundreds of resumes very, very easily. It also means we're competing with a lot more people. But it gives us the opportunity to have our resume out there with literally hundreds of companies where we couldn't have done that before as easily. We need to use Facebook and MySpace properly. How many people are on Facebook? Anybody on Facebook? Okay, so we really have to be careful. In terms of the do's, right? We want to be professional. This is a way a lot of companies look at Facebook now. So one of the things that we could do is make ourselves stand out beyond what our resume looks like or the cover letter. We can have part of our personality come out. But the key thing is to be professional. I don't know if you remember Michael Phelps, who was the Olympic swimming champion that won all the gold medals. And on his Facebook account, he was smoking a bong pipe, not exactly the image that we want to present to the world. So we have to be really careful about, what we're presenting. But there is another way to use Facebook if you're just maintaining your own account there now, and that is that virtually all of the Fortune 1000 companies have their own places in Facebook. And a number of them do hiring through there, so you really want to use Facebook much more aggressively than you have perhaps before. It's not just a place to have a good time. There are opportunities there. Do research on job opportunities. Once we get the interview, we should never go in cold. We should know about the company, the industry, not just try to wing it. Again, it's a very competitive environment. What could we do to make ourselves stand out more? This is something else, because I work with a lot of students, not nearly as much as some of my colleagues, in terms of their resumes and cover letters, and it drives me crazy that they think these days that you can have one resume that you send out to everybody, right? Given the fact that we have word processing, given the fact that we have the internet, it is so easy to change a couple of sentences so that we're targeting things that are different for different industries or different companies. So it really is important to customize the resume. We should never, in 2010, send out a letter that says, "Dear Sir or Madam." You're kidding, right? It is so easy to find out who the head of personnel is. We've got to personalize it. We want them to take an interest in us. We have to take an interest in them. And we really need to say that, we want to have our resume and cover letter looked at by somebody else, even if it's somebody who's not a professional in the field, just to get their eyes, to make sure that there's not a typo in there or there's not something that is misrepresented. Prepare thoroughly for interviews, right? So we finally get this interview with a company we really like to work for. Does that mean you just walk in the door and that's it? What is IBM? What is Hofstra if you had a job opportunity, at Hofstra University? So we really do have to prepare. And that's something else that turns, interviewers off. So put in the appropriate time and effort. Getting a job is a job. In this economy, don't say no to a reasonable job offer. As much as the long-term future looks really, really bright, we still have to deal with the short-term reality. So if we get a position, so let's say we're making $70,000 at our last job, and it will paying us, but we know that there's an opportunity out there for $50,000, take that opportunity, network through that job, get through this period, and a year from now, go back out into the job market, having had this on the resume, having made some money, having built back our self-esteem. So be really careful in saying no to a reasonable offer, because we're hung up on what we did with our last job. And if unemployed, gain additional skills. So what are the things that we could do? If we understand what the hot occupations are, what do we do to gain skills in that regard? So I know this is very hard to see, so I'm going to try to point a couple things out. So in the United States, in 2008, which is the most recent numbers by the U.S. government, there were 151 million people who were employed. That's full-time, part-time, everything. By 2018, that number is expected to rise by over 15 million people. So that's why I say if we can manage to get ourselves through this period, okay, of getting the best job that we can for now and building up our resume, the opportunities are out there. So you can see the percentage increases, all these double digits that are up here, management, business, and financial occupations, professional and related occupations, service occupations, they're all double digits. And that's just the number of new jobs that are going to be created. That doesn't take into account all the people who are going to be retiring. So we see here again, look at the percentage change in management, scientific, and technical consulting services over the 10-year period. Offices of physicians. This is not physicians now. This is people who are, office managers, who may be the accountants. A pretty good job being an accountant for a medical practice that has 10 doctors in it. All right. So there are a lot of things that the percentage increases are going to be pretty strong over the next several years. So we really have to divide our search up into what do we do to get ourselves through this period now, and then how do we plan to maximize the opportunities that are going to exist in the future. I want to show you these last two columns here, right? So this number is the change is the number of new jobs that are projected between 2008 and 2018. So that's a little over 15 million jobs. But the better number to focus on is this one. This is almost 51 million. That's the new jobs plus the people who are going to be retiring. All the baby boomers are going to be retiring between now and 2018. So that means that there are 51 million jobs that are going to be out there. So that's why we want to do the best we can now, gain more, skills to prepare ourselves, but the opportunities are there. Okay, you can see the value, the value of education. You see, a master's degree, the first professional degree, which is law, medicine, dentistry, all double digits in there. The value of education and earnings, and not only the value of education, but the unemployment statistics. So clearly, having a higher level degree does have an impact. So if you're at a point in your life where you're in the job market and having a tough time with it, maybe this is time to come back to school, take some courses, gain some more credentials. It does pay. These are not numbers that were generated by Hofstra to make you come here. These are numbers by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is just taking a look at the management, business, and financial occupations. And by the way, all these numbers are small. I understand that, and I'm going relatively quickly. But you have, one of the sheets that you have is the URLs I'm going over tonight. So if there's anything in particular that interests you, hop in there and take a look at it. So again, it shows you in the management, business, and financial occupations, it's expected to go up 1.6 million between 2008 and 18. But the total number of jobs are expected to go up by 5 million because of the retirements. So we have a lot of us old geezers that are going to be retiring. Although you're going to have to carry me out. I've been here 35 years, so I'm not as young as sometimes people perceive me to be. Hot long-term business opportunities. So according to the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which I'm going to show you a couple of highlights of in a second just to get you to take a look at that volume if you're not familiar with it. It's free, it's online. These are business occupations that are projected to have at least a 10% growth during the 2008 to 2018 period. They require at least a bachelor's degree, and a master's degree is usually preferred. So you have accountants and auditors, that's going to explode. We've got so many rules and regulations going on. But other areas you may not think of: advertising, marketing, promotions, public relations, sales managers, budget analysts, computer and information systems managers, financial analysts and personal financial advisors, human resources, training, labor relations managers, specialists, management consultants, medical and health services managers, whoops, 1, 2, 4. So what does this mean? This means that there are going to be, again, no matter how poor the job market may be now, it means that we really do have the opportunity to pursue the career that we're interested in, right? We should view today, if we're having a tough time with the job market, as a holding pattern. What do we do to do something that we can be employed, make some money now, and then gain additional skills, because all of these things are going to be really strong. So this is something that if you are thinking about changing careers or want to know about what's out there, this is a terrific site. Again, you have the URL on the sheet. It's called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. And it basically, as it says here, for hundreds of different jobs, it tells you the training and education needed, the average earnings, the expected job prospects. So it'll tell you over the next 10 years whether it's below average, average, greater than average, what people do in those jobs, and what the working conditions are. So it's a tremendous volume if you're at a point in your life where you are thinking about switching careers and you're really not sure, what that career is going to be. A lot of terrific information. This is some of the overall information that the handbook includes in it. And by the way, as you can see, this is the 2010-11 edition. One of the great things about the internet is that not only is the stuff free, where it used to cost quite a lot, or you went to the library to look at it, but the numbers and everything are out there much faster because it's easier to print it and publish it. So this shows you some of the, the overview of the projections from 2018. So just to give you an example, within, if we look over here, right, overview of projections, management, professional service, sales, administrator, on and on and on. These are the ones for management and then business and financial operations. So you see how many different categories there are. And for each one of them, if you were to click on that, you would get all that information. What the job prospects are, what the skills are, what the earnings are. So I just wanted to pick out one to show you how much information there is in there. And even here, I'm not showing you everything. But this is accountants and auditors. So, it tells you what do they do, what training and education is needed, what is employment, what is the job, what's the job outlook, projections, earnings, wages, etc. So most jobs require at least a bachelor's degree in accounting-related field. Job opportunities should be favorable. Those who have earned professional recognition, so we're talking about a CPA, an MBA, certification or licensure, especially CPA, should enjoy the best prospects, much faster than average employment growth will result from an increase. Every one of the occupation categories in here, they'll show you this information. Accountants and auditors held about 1.3 million jobs in 2008. It goes on and describes all this stuff. Accountants and auditors are expected to experience much faster than average employment growth. Now, employment of accountants and auditors is expected to grow 22% between 2008 and 2018. So you remember all the job categories that I showed you, they're going to grow by at least double digits. So that is the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is a tremendous resource, totally free, hundreds of occupations, gives you a lot of ideas. New York State, the Department of Labor, this is also on the handout, has a site that's called Looking for a Job. So it gives you the opportunity to post a resume. It also gives a variety of advice in here. It has something called the Career Zone. And as New York State residents, this is something that's very worthwhile for us. So I recommend that to you. New York State Department of Labor, Looking for a Job. Now, LinkedIn is something that many of you would not be involved in. And those of you that are probably aren't using it aggressively enough. So I want to spend a few minutes on that. I really, one of the courses I teach is an internet course, a graduate internet course, so I'm really getting excited with this thing. So in March, Fortune magazine had a cover story, How LinkedIn Will Fire Up Your Career. So this is a tremendous site that if you're on Facebook, but you're not on this should be interesting, because how do I click onto that? I don't know how to do that. With my fingers, I'll be looking if I can get to this. And I got the wrong one. That was good. Okay, teaching internet course. That's pretty sad. But you can see the bald spot in the back of my head. So. Okay, and you can't see that because the room, this is pretty small. But this is just some highlights of mine, just to show you, if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, what's on here. So it's got my current position, it's got my education, it's got my connections. I have 150 some odd, I'm pretty selective on that. It talks about the industry that I'm in. I'm able to link a couple of my websites, a video I did on YouTube on this topic and my website. Goes through education. And then on the next page, I just wanted to show you this too, if you're not familiar with LinkedIn at all, is that these are the Hofstra groups, nothing else, no other professional affiliations, none of my own degree programs. These are the groups that are relevant for me at Hofstra. All of these have anywhere from a couple of dozen people to a couple of thousand people. So what happens is every week I'm getting an email telling me that so-and-so is connecting with so-and-so, there may be a job opening, apply for this from someone. So, if you've got, whatever school you've gone to or company that you work for, if they're of any size at all, you're going to be able to get into these groups at LinkedIn. So this is tremendous value just right here. So get into LinkedIn. So if I can get to this one now. So part of this story that Fortune had, and this is really good, and I gave you the URL for that also. So if you go to the story from Fortune that I showed you the link for, they actually go through 8 different people, their LinkedIn page, and show you how to improve it. Okay? So if you're in LinkedIn, or I hope that everybody in here gets into LinkedIn after tonight, take a look at these 8 different stories, right? Learn how to use this. This is a tremendous social networking opportunity at LinkedIn. Okay, so good luck. Keep things in perspective. Wish I knew how to do that quicker, but you can only teach an old horse so many tricks. Oh, these aren't. Is this going to work? Okay. So what this says, if you could read it, is a sense of humor and reality is required. The following cartoons are copyrighted, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's just some cartoons to try to relieve the tension that is obviously in the room. Okay? VP of Sales, Employee of the Year, potty trained at 18 months, very impressive. We do have to be rather selective in what we want to highlight, right? That the potty trained one may not, appeal to a lot of people. Let's see now, extensive experience writing computer code. Do you get this one? Including but not limited to, and it's got all these, laughing out loud, by the way. This is not computer code. This is just slang shortcuts. So be careful not to overstate what we're capable of doing. I like this one. That says at the top, ever wonder what happens when you get to the IKEA job interview? So are we prepared? Can we walk into any job situation and say, what are they really trying to find out here? It's not whether you can put together that chair. It's whether you slam the door and run out because you're so afraid of having to put together the chair. This one, right? As the new guy, Jeff got the less coveted 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, right? So we have to be realistic about the job market and realize that we're not going to start out as CEO. We're not getting the best hours to start out with. That maybe the job that is in the off time is going to be the one that's available for us. Don't think of it as being fired. I just think we should see other companies. I just thought that was cute. Do not linger hazardous to your job, right? There's always somebody looking at us. We all feel this way, right? I'm looking for a workaholic who feels the great job he does is compensation enough, right? So there's nobody in here that thinks that you're overpaid, is there? Let me get this straight. So this is for the people who view their colleagues as slaggards, right? Let me get this straight. You do no work around here, yet you get food, attention, and a private indoor bathroom. So that's the dog talking to the cat. So somebody who has 4 cats on. And here's the last one, which is depressing. Jenkins, as you and I are the only ones left in the company, on the count of 3, we'll lay each other off and escort one another off the premises. So at least I got a chuckle out of it. A chuckle and I got lost. Well, it doesn't like me and I don't like it. Good thing that I was at the end. So, so you have the URLs that I gave you. You have the article. If you're interested in any of the stuff that I talked about, you have the URLs. Go and take a look. Particularly go to the Occupational Outlook Handbook. If you're not on LinkedIn, or even if you are, go take a look at that Fortune article. Look at the makeovers that they have there. It really is, excellent. So that's it for me. I think I talked really fast, but I'm a New Yorker. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to I'd introduce our panelists again, and they're going to each speak. Gary Huth, who's from the, because I don't have my finger, came back. Why? Was the principal economist and labor market analyst for the New York State Department of Labor. I'm going to turn that off so it's not distracting either. Fred Burke, who's the executive director of the Career Center at Hofstra, and Barbara Church-Kattan, who's the director of the Graduate Career Services for the Czar School. Let's turn this off. I know the easiest way to do this. It'll drive them crazy, but that's okay. You're up or down? Stand up or sit down.
As Bill said, my name is Gary Huth. I'm the labor market analyst with the New York State Department of Labor, and we do produce some of the things. He really gave you a lot of good information there and a lot of good links. One just a caveat I would add, he was talking about the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is an excellent site. We also, and he mentioned Career Zone, we have some of that available through our site, and one of the things both in the Occupational Outlook Handbook and on our site, particularly in the kind of rapid changing economy that we have, when you look at an occupation, at the end it has related occupations. It's a good brainstorming piece to look at in terms of, look at jobs. I'm an accounting major, if I'm a finance major, if I'm a psychologist, whatever, you could get some idea of where the range of jobs are. If you use our version of the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is either Career Zone or Job Zone, you can take that one step further, actually. You can go from the related occupations. You could also click on jobs in that occupation that are currently listed in our job bank. We have one of the biggest job banks in the area. And there are algorithms that allow you, that select the jobs. And so by that I mean it also will take not just if you put in accountant, it will not just put in accounting jobs that are listed, it will actually go to other jobs that the algorithms tell them are related to that. And I've been surprised as a labor market analyst, some of the job titles that pop up and that you say, oh, I never really thought of that. And I never really thought of working in that industry. So, but I off on a little bit of a tangent here. My office does both some of the occupational projections. We do employment estimates. We're the ones who also do the unemployment rate for our area. So we follow a lot of occupational and labor market trends. I thought I'd just talk maybe a few minutes about what the state of the economy appears to be at this point. While it's still a very rough economy and tight job market, we have seen some very significant improvements just since the beginning of the year, both at the Long Island level and in the New York State, and particularly in the downstate metro area. despite the fact that this crisis was largely driven out of the financial sector. Surprisingly, the New York City financial sector experienced dramatic job losses, but not nearly what actually were expected. There are a lot of economists and labor market analysts scratching their heads about exactly why that happened. Certainly part of it probably was the massive response from the federal government, the Federal Reserve Bank, to the downturn in the crisis. And you can look, for example, now and see a number of banks. JP Morgan has been hiring for a number of months, actually, everything from branch officers and branch people to other parts of their area. But there still is a lot of turmoil in that industry, a lot of changes going on there. Keep an eye out if you're interested in this area. We have some small banks in the Long Island area in particular that have just come into the area actually in the last about 3 to 4 years, and some of those present opportunities also. But generally, the labor market, the current unemployment rate is 6.6%. We're actually down slightly from a year ago, and we actually, as of April, had added 6,700 jobs on Long Island. And just to show you the dramatic difference, in December of 2009, we were down by 33,000 jobs. So there's been, frankly, I'm a little uncomfortable. These numbers get revised. The improvement that we're seeing in those numbers are pretty strong in terms of what some of the other indicators in the economy are. So while there's kind of two stories that are out there, there's the one story that you've heard all the time that this will be a jobless recovery. The job market and the economy collapsed in such a dramatic way that I'm not sure if that's totally the case. If you get that rapid a drop-off, you do have a better chance of a fairly strong bounce back. Some of the numbers are showing actually that bounce back is stronger than what most economists had anticipated. However, there are still a number of problems that are out there, certainly in the financial sector. They're in the commercial and residential real estate areas. We have a lot of government, especially local and state government budget problems, which actually could be kicking in as we speak. There's talk of a number of teacher layoffs, for example, in the area. So those are some of the downsides. But there is, like I said, there is some sense of things. Certainly, companies cut back way beyond what they needed to cut back on. And one of the results of that is that especially larger companies apparently have record levels of cash available. Their financial situation for many of them is very good, to the point where people wonder, what are they going to do with that cash? Are they going to do mergers and acquisitions? Are they going to pay, are they going to pay larger dividends? But that's certainly not true for all companies, but there are situations that are like that. So and again, both, and in general, the Northeast has fared seemingly better in this area, in this economy, than some other areas. The hardest hit areas were Southern California, Florida, Arizona, particularly places where there had been a tremendous amount of housing speculation that was going on. There was some, I think Long Island didn't have very much overbuilding in terms of real estate, but it is suffering because of the overall weakness in the economy. And there was a lot of mergers and acquisitions, et cetera. There was a lot of leveraging of debt that drove a lot of businesses out of companies, made it impossible to survive. Linens and Things, I believe, for example, was a company that was bought out, highly leveraged, and they might have been able to survive as a company, except they had these huge debt levels. And and so they basically went out of business. But we are seeing a bounce back in some of the other areas. There are a couple of areas that I'll just mention that I think are opportunity areas going forward, and a little bit also along the line of what Joel was talking about what the longer term outlook is. I tend to be a little bit more of an optimist than some other people, but I do think, for example, with the new technologies that we have, with the amount of entrepreneurship and innovation that's potentially in the U.S. economy, there are certainly, if we play our cards right, we should be able to do fairly well. And Long Island is a place that still has, as a technology leader, has a highly skilled workforce in general, and has some possibilities of doing that. But it's all about modernization. So two areas where I think that the government has been putting quite a bit of money into, and two areas just of opportunity. We all heard about healthcare reform, but I would have never called it personally healthcare reform. I would have called it healthcare modernization. We needed to do something dramatic about our healthcare system. It was just quite dysfunctional. They are currently, and the healthcare system was a major lagger in terms of adopting technologies and innovation. So by the year they're now spending, and the money's really just starting to flow now, $20 billion to digitalize medical records. Every doctor's office will have to have digitalized medical records by the year 2014. That's really not very far out there. So there is a major effort going on. Every major computer, software, and hardware company that I know of is involved in this in a big way. IBM, Hewlett-Packard, Computer Associates, Microsoft, Dell, all of the software companies, they're all involved in this. Some of you may have read about 4 or 5 months ago, LIJ North Shore is spending $400 to $500 million just to get doctors in their networks to buy into the digital record system that they're using. So there's a significant amount of effort that's going on there. Now, if you take it a step further than that, why are they doing this? They are basically, and again, I didn't hear this talked about really in the whole healthcare reform movement, but they are in essence using digital records to move from a fee-for-service model. Fee-for-service means whatever the doctor ordered, x-rays, labs, 3 versions of x-rays, whatever was ordered was paid for. So they want to go from a fee-for-service model to an outcomes-based model. You can't really go, which is how most businesses operate, with an outcomes-based model, with a results-oriented model. But you can't really do that without digital records, right? You've seen those paper charts. We've all been to a doctor's office, and the clerk goes to the back. Where else in the world today, in modern business, do you see a place that has all of those paper records there? Well, they can't go to an outcomes-based model without doing that. Now, to show you the pace of modernization, I think this is very important in terms of when you're looking for a job and how you're looking for things. I think we all kind of recognize we're in the 21st century, but I think most of us do not integrate that into what we do and how we look for a job and how we think. You need to think also about how your personal life has changed. People walking around with iPods, they use all of these, devices that they have. These are the dramatic changes that we have in our day-to-day entertainment lives, etc., are carrying over into the business world, and we have to be able to do that. So another big part of the healthcare reform movement, and I think that this is, or modernization, is something that's already been existing in some business, what they call analytics. Again, the ability, now analytics is over my head here a little bit, folks. There are probably many people in the room who know more than I do. But again, it's my understanding that analytics are basically algorithms that take data points and put them together to say what you're going to see what your outcomes should be. This is what they need to do, and this is what they're going to do in the healthcare system. Once they have the digitalized records, if you go to in some places now, you go to the emergency room, you'll see they have computer software programs. They now will come up and they'll show you. The doctor puts in, you have a certain temperature, you have a certain, several other kinds of symptomatology. They'll put those in and the analytics will link that together, and they say, oh, I should have considered this option. The doctor will still make the decision, but they'll have the kind of resources and information that will be available. So this is a big area of expansion and opportunity and modernization, which also has the possibility of bringing better healthcare quality at a lower cost and bringing the efficiencies that we've seen in many other areas of business into the healthcare sector at a time when we really need to contain costs. The other area is in the energy area. There's a lot of talk about that. The biggest areas, people tend to think about solar, wind, etc., hydrogen fuel cells, but the biggest driver of energy savings is process improvements, efficiencies in areas. Most major companies will probably have, or in the near future, have an energy officer that will be somebody who will look at where their energy costs can be. Long Island is one of the most high-cost energy markets in the United States, so the return on investment by having energy efficiency is somewhere there. You can bump up some of your credentials by taking some courses or some certifications in terms of energy efficiencies. There's a lot of opportunities that are evolving at that point, and I think that they'll continue. Those are just a couple of areas. Sometimes what I like to do, and I'll take just a few more minutes before I wrap up, is to talk about, if you talk about the Long Island economy, Cheryl Davidson, somebody I know from Long Island Works, says one of the problems for young people, particularly on Long Island, is they drive down the LIE and they see all of these office buildings and they have no idea who all of these companies are. So if they're away at school someplace and somebody from another corporation offers them a job someplace, they go someplace because they don't know what the opportunities are on Long Island. Long Island, though, is a highly diversified, pretty much still high technology company, but you've got to think the largest company here probably is no more. If we have 3 companies that are more than 5,000 people, I think that's a lot. We probably really, and most of the companies that we have here are not real high-profile household name companies. Computer Associates, a major, called CA, I guess now, one of the major business software companies in the world, not a household name to most people. So some of the companies also that people don't think of that are here, many of them are global companies. How many people know who Henry Schein is? Okay. A few years ago, I would ask that on Long Island and nobody would know who Henry Schein was. Henry Schein is a major global company. Again, they don't have 1 million employees here. They probably have somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 employees, maybe on Long Island, but they are constantly expanding. They also, by the way, are into this whole digitalized medical records thing. They are in essence a distributor of dental products. They're a very sophisticated, highly advanced company, both global markets and in terms of in the United States. Not a company that may be known. Motorola is on Long Island. Again, a history of how this works and how our technology history. Motorola bought Symbol Technology. Symbol Technology was the Long Island company that invented barcode scanning. Major transformation in terms of how business is done. The barcode scanners. So Motorola bought Symbol Technology, but in Motorola on Long Island is not their cell phones, it's what they call their mobility enterprise area. and it's based on their work with simple technology. It's the only profitable sector I understand of Motorola is what they have on Long Island. Again, a company that people don't. Aero Electronics, another company in Melville, has about 12 to 13, 1,500 people. Again, a major distributor of sophisticated electronics equipment, worldwide operations. They just made, I think, a new purchase the other day. Canon is building a new headquarters, again over on the 110 corridor. They are expanding supposedly when they move to the new headquarters, which is not going to be for a couple of years. They just did the groundbreaking about a week or two ago. But they will at that point expand from, they think they have about 1,200 people. They'll go up to about 2,000 people. Northrop Grumman, people think that they're gone. They don't do production on Long Island anymore, but they still have about 2,500 employees on Long Island. They primarily define themselves as a software company. They do sophisticated electronics equipment. They do sophisticated planning and designing of infrastructure. Do not, I hope I don't step on any toes here in the room, do not believe this concept that manufacturing is dying, and manufacturing is going away, and that it'll go, if manufacturing processes stayed the same as they always were, they would go to the lowest cost producer. Manufacturing, trust me, has not stayed the same. You would not recognize most manufacturing sites if you entered them today, and they are healthy job opportunity areas, both from the point of view of if you were thinking of going into engineering or some kind of advanced machining, would be something that I'm not saying is probably right for this crowd that came out of business, but these are very good business opportunities, and any company like Northrop Grumman or Aero Electronics or Motorola that came out of a manufacturing sector has a number of opportunities in there. We still have 76,000 manufacturing jobs on Long Island, and in those companies like Northrop Grumman, they primarily are not just production people. Production people, by the way, are very highly paid today, but and most of them require at least an associate's degree, if not a BA degree. But they are dynamic. As I say to young people, you can't have an iTunes without an iPod. When Steve Jobs stands up in front of a crowd and says, I now have this phone device that will take video at high quality and it's this big, who designed that? Who invented that? Who put that together, let alone who taught him his marketing skills? He's a genius at marketing. And there's a lot of implications that flow from that. So there's just a lot of opportunities here. We have Cablevision. I mentioned Chase Bank that's here. LIJ North Shore, one of the largest healthcare networks consortiums in the United States is LIJ North Shore. The whole development, if you haven't been over by Lake Success in a few years, the untold story on Long Island from my point of view, because I drive by there, I commute through that area, it's horrendous for me. The traffic jams there in the morning are terrible now. There's been a big build-up there, a lot of medical research, etc. Cold Spring Harbor, where the human genome was first mapped. It's still a huge resource for Long Island in terms of about everyone. By the way, LIJ North Shore, of course, is going to help work with the medical school here, building a medical school at Hofstra. I think that's tremendous growth opportunities there that will spill over into all sorts of other areas. But Brookhaven Laboratories, another resource on Long Island, the biggest federally funded energy lab in the United States is at Brookhaven. They are now also a major international data center. They have huge amounts of data that are dealt with. They have a lot of jobs in computer networking, database management. They have, they're a major area. They, of course, do all sorts of things. They also do medical research, etc. We have, again, I mentioned Computer Associates, what's called cloud computing. Again, a little over my head here, folks. But again, for example, with healthcare, which I talked about, electronic medical records, healthcare is the biggest industry on Long Island and the biggest industry in the United States. When it goes to a digital database electronic records system, there's going to be huge demands for more data, warehousing, etc. And that apparently is, from what I understand, going to move to the cloud instead of being on, the typical kind of servers. So these are, again, other areas. We have a Homeland Security Center that was recently opened up over in Bethpage at an old Grumman site. It's a Homeland Security Center called the Ken Morelli Center. And that's a whole nother area, cybersecurity, both for the Defense Department and for commercial uses, is another kind of area that Long Island has a lot of software and IT skills involved. So I just want to, I think it's sometimes helpful, particularly on Long Island, to see the broad range of companies and what some of the opportunities are there. I haven't even touched on culture and entertainment, really. These are major areas of expansion, or major areas of opportunity. People tend to think of food service and leisure and hospitality as low-paying jobs. You were telling, Joel was talking before, don't think so much about, especially in this economy, and I'm going to start out at the top. Think of where you get into and what foods you, what your career paths are. The famous Long Island weddings, everybody knows what they cost. There's money to be made in leisure and hospitality, food and entertainment. Many restaurants, people do very well. So there's a whole range of business opportunity. So I'll just wrap up. Again, Joel's idea that we can, the future can be pretty bright, but it's going to be driven by productivity, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Everybody needs to have an entrepreneurial attitude, whether you think about starting your own business or whether you're just being an entrepreneur in terms of how you plan and negotiate your career. So keep that in mind, and I guess I'll finish it up for me.
John ran a list of organizations as well, and I think there are two that I'd like to add to your list is Broadridge Financial, which is doing a lot of growth out east, and Hain Celestial Seasoning, as everyone's become more aware of the food we eat and how conscious we are about environmental and organic. Hain Celestial Seasoning's done a lot of growth in local and Long Island as well. And
a lot of Hofstra alums.
And a lot of Hofstra alums at both places as well. As you look at these things, it's very easy to look at media, both on Channel 12 and Newsday, as well as Long Island Business, to get put your finger on the pulse of what's going on. It's really helpful. Can I go without the microphone? Is that all right? Mm-hmm. All right, I'll do that because I'm not going to fight this all night. I thought I put together some information about impressions. Joel Evans put together a nice article about self-assessment and branding yourself. I work with the undergraduate students here at the university. I do a lot of work with Society of Human Resource Management, involved with many organizations. I hear a lot from HR folks about not getting the right applicants for the job. How can we get a better applicant pool? How can candidates stand out and be successful in the jobs? We want to give you some impressions and remarks, but feel free to ask any questions as I'm going along. But we talked a little bit about LinkedIn. Before I get to LinkedIn, let's go back a little bit. And I think everyone now, some things have resumes, some things have a cover letter, and those documents are now transmitted electronically. But most HR people always criticize or complain about the lack of quality resumes and cover letters that go out to a job for a job that get posted. So really take the time to focus your correspondence. As Joel Evans mentioned, you got to write a cover letter that really articulates your skills. So you have to know what you're about, what you can offer that employer. So take a few minutes and think about what you have to offer, what you've experienced, and how you can translate that to the new place you're going to be applying for. As you write the cover letter, show the employer in that letter why you can make a contribution, what you can bring to the table. And that is so important. And use the words that you see in the job description, the cover letter, and the resume, because that goes into a database. Those words are going to be picked up when they do a scan search online. So just think about it. It takes a little bit longer time, but that investment in the beginning will often get your foot in the door for an interview, which hopefully gets you to the job offer. So think about that. Many people are kept out in the initial part because they're not doing a good job with the resume and cover letter. So really take a step back and think about your skill set, do your SWOT analysis, look at that skill set. And if you're looking to be promoted, looking to retool, looking to change careers, think about what you have to offer and how you can translate it. Some people fall short and they don't know how to articulate their skill set. So have someone help you, a wife or a husband or a family member, a spouse, an outside friend, but use those ways to get yourself refocused and go. It's something that so obviously but often overlooked a lot. Do you want to add anything to that, either one of you? Okay. And I'm sure Gary, on the Department of Labor, I hear a lot from people that people don't use that resource. It's a great resource, but people don't put their resume out there to be looked at. So take a step back. As you write the resume and cover letter, do not use a template. That's going to reflect who you are as a person, but keep it professional. Years ago, you put your social security number on there, you put your marital status, you put your children on there. That's all not appropriate anymore. So make sure you're retooling yourself with professional and up-to-date correspondence. So keep that in mind. So that's the basic paper stuff. Anything you transmit online, any emails you send, any application made, just think about what it's coming from. Make sure your email address is professional. Your first and last name at Gmail, at Yahoo. I hear that Hotmail is not a good email service to use because Hot sends off a red flag and often goes into spam folder. So if you're using a free email service, go to Gmail, go to Yahoo. Think about those things. If you're on Facebook, Facebook is very popular these days. It was very popular for college students and opened up about 3 or 4 years ago for the population to use. Facebook is great, but many people shoot themselves in the foot because they put out stuff that's not professional. No one needs to see you tagged on the beach, hanging out with your friends, having a couple of beers. It's not appropriate. And if your friends photograph you and tag you, employers can see that. So Facebook is one viable way. Be mindful if you're job seeking and your privacy settings aren't high, anybody can see your profile. You don't want to keep yourself out, as we know the job market's tough. Keep yourself in the game. You don't want to knock yourself out of the opportunity, so keep that in mind. But it's, again, a very powerful resource. You can become a fan of a company. You can join groups and things like that. LinkedIn is also very powerful. I'll talk about LinkedIn later on, but definitely get on LinkedIn. I'll give you some more stuff about that. Any phone calls you make, a professional message, make sure your cell phone's professional. If you're at a Mets or a Yankees game and you get a phone call, don't answer it if you can't speak to the employer. Be mindful of those things, simple things like that. Listen to the message before you respond to the call. People get missed call, they call them back, hi, what'd you call me for? Listen to the message. Think about those things. Back to those traditional ways. The etiquette's very important. Anytime you go to an event, if you're networking, if you're job searching, think about how you present yourself, what you're wearing, how your hair is dressed. Are you dressed to go out Friday night, or are you dressed to go to a professional setting? So be mindful of that. We become a very casual environment. So think about how you articulate yourself both in person as well as online and on paper. And again, really think about talking about your skill set, what you have to offer. Many of us have good skill sets. Think about how you can transfer them. You know, as the workforce is changing, think about what you've acquired, and if you have experience, how that experience helps you versus someone who's 21 or 22. Keep those things in mind. It's very, very important. Anytime you have a job interview, practice, practice, practice. If you get to the job interview, that's wonderful. Your resume is good, your cover letter is good. You get to the interview, you don't want to blow it. Do your research. HR people say all the time, people come into the interview and have no idea what they're interviewing for, and you're wasting their time and your time. So take the time, go online, Google the company, go to LexisNexis. When I was in college, not that I'm that old, but we had to go back and microfiche things and look at articles online. That's maybe less than 20 years ago. Now, with Google and any other search engine, you can do this really quickly, so take the time to do your homework. It really helps you separate yourself out. When you're sending your resume and cover letter, absolutely personalize it. Take a minute, call the company. I'm applying for the HR position. Who do I direct my correspondence to? Send it to Pat so-and-so. Is that a Mr. or a Miss? You can say Dear Miss or Dear Mr. Take the time to do that. But again, too big concern goes right in the trash. Keep that in mind. You want to make your resume come up right on top of the pile. If you're going back to school and you're picking up a skill set, you're going back for a master's degree or coming back for education, show on your resume that you're actively getting new skill set. If you're currently employed, your company offers training workshops, show that on your resume that you're actually improving your skill set. You don't want to mark yourself out of the job. You want to keep yourself always be reinventing as you're moving along. Just some initial observations that I have.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You just said personalize it. Okay, so now if you're doing a job board and it says apply here,
Right.
how do you're saying research that company and find out?
Absolutely. So your objective might be to obtain, give me an example of what you're working for. So you're looking for, say, an HR position at Canon. You would say in your objective to obtain an HR generalist job at Canon. That will leverage my experience, blah, blah, blah. Nice, specific to the point. So when that goes into the search pool, your resume pops up. In the
That I
research.
get, but when you're saying address it to, so we were told in career council, I went to outplacement,
Right.
and they told us always just put in there, dear hiring manager.
If you're actually applying your resume, you know who to apply to, you can personalize that one and apply with that. When it's going on a job board, it can be a general resume, but if you're actually applying to the company, you want to
Okay, I
personalize.
just wanted to clarify.
Yep, absolutely. So, there's millions of resumes in these databases. How are you going to stick out? Think about that. Okay. There are jobs, and I want to talk a little about how you find those jobs that exist. I mean, Dr. Evans talked about some databases as well. Employers are always looking to tap into talent, always looking to see what's out there, what's the market looking like. I think one of the best websites to use is Indeed, www.indeed.com. If you're not familiar with Indeed, it's wonderful. You can put in job title and zip code, and every job in that category will pop up, and you go to a 5 to 10 to 15, 20-mile radius of your house. And that goes out as a web crawler and pulls all the jobs in for you. Also, Career Builder is also a really good one. There are many other specialized sites for industry. So, for example, not every employer will post on those massive boards. If you're looking for HR, go to SHRM, shrm.org. If you're looking to go in publishing, go to bookjobs.com. Looking in finance, go to wallstreetjobs.com. If you're looking to go into IT, go to dice.com, dice.com. Those are industry-specific job boards for the employers that are looking for those industries. So keep that in mind as well. Also look at employers' websites. If you want to look for the hospital, look at North Shore LIJ's website. They're always updating those listings. They may not advertise it on Newsday, therefore they get picked up by Indeed or Career Builder, but it's sitting on their website with no one looking at it. So identify your employers and keep checking those websites on a weekly basis. Networking. Who do you know? Everybody knows people through church, through synagogue, through their children, through clubs and activities, through organizations, through social engagements. Mention to people what you're doing, what you want to do. Who do you know? Referrals and networking is probably the #1 way people find jobs. So keep that in mind. Don't overlook your obvious networks. There's always people that know people, and people like to talk about what they do for a living. So people are flattered when you ask them for their advice. So think that and keep that in mind. As I said before, when you make a direct application, target yourself, get yourself on top. So, LinkedIn. I'll talk a little bit more about LinkedIn because it's very powerful for college students, but it lets you connect with people through various groups. You set up a profile on LinkedIn, and you can start joining groups. So I'm a member of some HR groups, I'm a member of my professional association, I'm a member of my alumni association. I'm getting emails all the time of what's going on, so that's great. But say if you want to meet somebody, and you know so-and-so that's in an area, and you want to look up on that LinkedIn, it could be awkward to link in someone you don't know. So you want to send a little note and say, dear Miss Church-Kattan, I met you at the panel, I'm looking at the MBE program at Hofstra, may we connect on LinkedIn? So introduce yourself to Barbara, but it's not a cold LinkedIn. So keep that in mind. If you're just linking random people, they don't know who you are, they're going to say, I don't know. People linking me, I don't know who they are, and I'm not going to accept them because I want to protect my contacts that I've established relationship with. So keep that in mind. But it's a really good database to use. The pros are you can establish a network, but the cons are it could be a little awkward, so keep yourself professional. I think LinkedIn's more of a professional resource, whereas Facebook is more social. So I think of one and the other are separate but yet similar, so keep that in mind. A lot of jobs are posted on LinkedIn. Who do you know? I'm looking for blah, blah, blah. I see jobs posted on LinkedIn all the time. It's free and a great way to get the word out and run through these different groups that exist. If you're not familiar with LinkedIn, there's a great website called grads.linkedin.com. It'll talk to you about how to set up your profile, how to work through it. It's only targeted for the undergraduates, graduates from college, but again, very transferable information. I had a PowerPoint presentation that I decided to dumb down and just give you some notes, so pardon me here a second. I did prepare a handout that I handed out at the front desk about information interviewing. If you're meeting somebody that wants to give you some of their time about how they got to the career, I gave you some questions to ask them. If someone's going to give you 15 minutes and meet you for a cup of coffee, you want to do your homework and go prepared. Google the person, look at them on LinkedIn, find out he or she, and prepare your questions. And I put informational interview questions, job search questions, and career-related questions. Feel free to borrow those questions and take 5 or 6 of those questions that really apply to your own individual needs and ask that person for advice, recommendations, suggestions. How do I apply? Well, how do people get to the organization? What advice do you have for me? I'm being downsized the next 6 to 8 months. I need to retool myself. What suggestions? What would you recommend I do? People are happy to give you that information, so use those resources. Again, don't overlook the obvious connections. Follow up. A lot of people do not follow up. If somebody gives you their time, make sure you send a thank you note. Drop them a little email. If you're interviewing for a job, employers sometimes look for an email. People don't do emails or thank you notes anymore. Send a thank you note, and it's okay to do it over email, but thank an employer for his or her time. Thank them for the information interview. Thank them for the information. Thank you for the meeting. Keep the network going. The more time your name pops up in the inbox, the more they're going to know who you are. When after these happen, they're going to go back to those correspondence they've had with the previous candidate. Again, obviously overlooked all the time. We're all very busy. We forget those obvious things, but again, you float your name to the top of the applicant pile. Always remember names, keep yourself organized, etc. I guess we'll do questions at the end, right? All right, I'll take a seat and I'll hand over to Barbara and we'll go back for questions. Thank you very much.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Barbara Church-Kattan. I direct the Graduate Business Career Services for the Czar School of Business. How many of you are thinking about adding a credential to your background, such as more training, more educational experience? Okay. Well, you're here to learn about business. That was the topic for tonight as well, and you've heard so much information about predictions for the future of employment here in the United States. But the world of business is constantly changing. I work with the MBA students, I work with the Master of Science students, I work with the EMBA students. These are all Czar programs that all of you could consider as a graduate studies program. When asked to be on this panel, I was so busy working one-on-one with all the MBA and MS students that are currently in the program, helping them, career coaching them, repeated appointments with them, helping them with their internship search if they were a first year, helping them with their full-time search if they were a second year. We have full-time students, we have part-time students. Our program can accommodate any of your needs, and it can help you change your career towards something in the future. And you've heard ideas tonight about possible trends. I was excited to be asked to be on this panel because I thought, okay, now I'm going to take some time and I'm going to really dig and research and get some answers for you. You know, what should I do in business? What could I do? Where could I take my career? And I felt it was really important to do some in-depth analysis for you and analyze some trends. And I knew my distinguished colleagues were going to represent a lot of that information as well. But I also wanted to base my analysis on what's happening to our students, what's real, what's happening right now, and what actual opportunities are out there. We've heard about industries and trends, but I thought, let me focus on jobs and specifics that I'm seeing out there and what those trends are and what the media seems to be stating. There were so many articles that I was researching, and I used various professional associations, as Fred has mentioned, that we belong to when we work on the Career Center side of a university, ranging from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. I particularly belong to an MBA Career Services Council, which is people doing what I do with all the MBA programs. They belong to it, and tons of research is available and at our fingertips for you. I found various websites, and all I found were articles on where the job openings are now. What will the hot jobs be? What industries are hiring now, right? Because we all want these answers, and this is what the media is doing. 51 ways to find a job fast, guaranteed, right? That's what we're seeing, that's what we're reading about. So my head was spinning, and I thought, well, I need to get real for you. You know, you're coming to the Hofstra University. We want to help you because we help our students. And all of us are trying to provide you with that type of information for your future, too, and what predictions there might be. And honestly, the best article that I read from Real-Time Economics was titled, "Economists React. Recoveries don't move in a straight line." Right? And that is so important, in my opinion. I think it says it all. You cannot totally predict what the future will bring. Yes, this is an incredibly difficult economy. That's all we hear. But I truly believe, I've been doing this career advising in 3 different universities for over 25 years. And I truly believe that people with a passion, people that work hard, people that have the willingness to do everything it takes, people that are creative, people that network, you've heard about all these things, but people that are flexible, people that develop a concrete action plan for their career search, and utilize all the resources that are available for your career search will be successful. Now, when you come to the Zarb School, if this is something you'd like to consider, you will have that kind of hand-holding. My belief and advice to all business students, and I work with alumni as well, are that you must begin with your own self-analysis. That's why you're here. You want to hear ideas. What's out there? What's there for my future? Well, you got to start with yourself, because you all have background. You all have experience. You all have developed skills. And you can't just make them go away. They are who you are. The key part is identifying what those skills are. Know your strengths, know your skills. This was touched upon earlier, but this is something that we do when you come to the Zarb School. We actually provide you with a self-assessment inventory that's a Harvard-based tool called Career Leader. And we work one-on-one with you through this analysis. And a major report is generated. We pay for it, and we start there with you in planning your career, in analyzing and career coaching you towards something that incorporates your own background already into areas and industries where there might be growth. But you can't let go of the skills you've already developed. You can let go of skills that you don't want to use anymore, that you're not so interested in anymore, and look for opportunities where more of the skills you're excited about will be utilized and taken advantage of. It's really critical that you identify the skills that you love and make sure those are a piece of where you're going next. You also need to research about careers and industries and job descriptions on a regular basis. You need to stay on top of the news. You've heard that from my colleagues here. It will help you direct your interests. You need to know what the trends are and then focus your skills into the trends. You have to be realistic about the changing markets. You know, when students come to me and say, I want to work in investment banking, well, have you been reading much lately? Yes, actually, I researched and found that the investment banking jobs are beginning to increase again. But, you know, in reality, the competition for those jobs, because so many people have been laid off, unless there's some niche markets that are growing, and I'll talk about those in a second, it's going to be very difficult. I don't think it was brought up, and forgive me if it was, but you also have to understand your personal values. You have to make sure that when you're interviewing, you're able to identify your core values that will be met in the job opportunities and the position that you're interviewing for. For example, let's say that you hate to work alone. You really want to make sure that a critical piece of where you're going next includes teamwork. You want to make sure that you hear stories about people that started in this position, where are they now within your company if you believe in growth within a particular firm or an industry. If that's a value to you, you want to make sure there's growth. If you want to be creative in a job, you have to be able to ask questions that will provide you with the information that you can judge if this is creative enough for you, that there's flexibility to you contributing and giving your ideas and being creative in your position. So it's back to your core values. Identify some of them that will be the most important and make sure some of those are there. I will admit, and we all know this in everything we've been reading, that the job and internship search for our students here at Hofstra is taking longer, for all students across the country, than ever before. My employment rate out of the Zarb MBA MS program showed that in 07-08, that graduation class, it showed that 97% of the MBA MS graduating students had their first job offer prior to graduation and within 3 months. 97%. We graduate just under 200 a year. In 08-09, our last major statistics, 82%, it dropped to 82% had their first job offer by graduation and within 3 months of graduation. What can I say about this class that just graduated May 10? I don't know yet. I do know that it's taking longer, definitely taking longer, because it's summer, classes ended mid-May, the majority of the students finished, and it's taking longer. It will move to 6 months, I think, from 3 to 6 months, the higher percentage. But it's across the board. But a lot of students, for example, that did not start their search or didn't know they wanted to do a search until May when they were about to graduate are the ones suffering. The people that started 6 to 9 months prior, the whole final year in the MS MBA program, they are the ones that have been much more successful. I really believe that this translates into everyone must work harder. They must put much more time into their job search. They must be more organized. They must constantly follow up, and you've been given lots of tips on how to do all this. But I will share with you too, oddly, Zarb has many opportunities, full-time, part-time internships that are offered. We have an online posting system, and alumni and students are able to use the system, and we get opportunities for these students, as well as our networking events and programs that bring connections and opportunities and job postings. That most of the things that have been posted were not even applied to. I track these applications. In 08-09, we had 187 MBA MS students graduate. We had 3,340 opportunities posted. That was up approximately 30% from the 2,071 opportunities the year before. Yet, I just told you it took longer for these people to actually get hired. The offers came out slower, even though there were more opportunities. Oddly enough, when we go in and look at the job opportunities, we can actually see the count of resumes from our Hofstra students, Fred and I, that are going out. And it's amazing to us how many opportunities people don't even apply to, which means you must be flexible. And that's critical in this kind of job market. I also believe that our students right now that I'm working with are developing 4 to 5 targeted resumes. Not 1, not 2, not 3. 4 to 5 targeted resumes because they have 4 or 5 targeted industry searches or functional area searches. If you're not doing that, that's why you're not being successful, in my opinion. And we work with our students to do that on a one-on-one basis constantly. It was mentioned that the keywords of your skills on your resume have to match the keywords on the job descriptions. If you're not doing that, your resume is not being pulled. You have got to take it upon yourself to identify targeted areas. My suggestion is always print out 3 or 4 job descriptions in a targeted area. Let's just pick financial analyst, business analyst. Find 3 or 4 jobs, print them out, spread them out on a table, and highlight the functional action verbs that are in those job descriptions. Those are the skills. You know, the core requirements are there. You need a bachelor's degree in finance or accounting. You need 1, 2, 3 years of work experience, or a range, right? If you can check the core credentials off, you should be considering applying further. Then check the skills and see if your resume represents those skills. You know, did you do budget analysis in a job? Is that word on there? Because it's on the job description. Did you do forecasting? It better be on the job description, etc. Did you use Excel? It better be on the job description if you have it. That's what they want to see that you match. the competition is so strong right now that this is the work that I'm talking about that has to be done. The employers truly can be incredibly selective right now. They want it all to match, which is not easy. They want you to have come from the same industry. They want you to have the exact matching skill sets. So it's up to you to be creative with identifying skills that you've developed somewhere in your past, and maybe even developing a functional resume. And that sometimes is helping many of my alumni. Lastly, I wanted to share with you some employment trends that make sense to me for our ZARD grad students. An interesting site, simplyhired.com. The top 3 areas where jobs were posted in business areas, the highest areas were management, IT, these are functional areas, and marketing. Close to 30% of all the jobs posted were involving management, 20% were involving IT, and 8% were involving marketing. Something else, management jobs increased from October 08 to, this was up to April 2010. Management jobs increased by 15%. But the bulk of jobs are in management. Masters will help. IT jobs increased in this same time period, October 08 to April 10, by 8%. Marketing jobs increased in this time period by 30%. The following professional areas with the most jobs actually being posted were all in similar ranges, making up the whole business format of opportunities. 1 to 9% of jobs. Remember, I'm saying management are up at 30, IT is at 20% of all the jobs, marketing is at 8%. But all these other ones I'm going to mention that caught my eye. Compliance. This is a huge up-and-coming area, and currently increased by 13% from 08 to now, April 2010. Project management by 12%. Banking jobs, this is going to blow your mind. In that time period, 42% increase. Who would guess? Banking overall, I didn't say investment banking, but the jobs are increasing finally. Human resource management increasing by 22%. Corporate finance jobs, which surprised me honestly, because I thought more jobs were opening up in corporate finance than in banking. So it's the opposite, according to the jobs that were actually out there. Corporate finance really remained stable from 08 to now. Did you know that finance jobs in general decreased by 2%, and accounting jobs decreased by 9%? I've been doing this, career services, as I said, for many years. Accounting has always remained stable out of college. They recruit always in the fall. In the fall, when they came to our Career Center to interview our students, we always try to get information out of recruiters. And everybody's saying, well, we hired most of our interns, we're just going to remain stable. Just like last year, we'll hire about the same number. No increase. That's what we heard, no increase. But now, at the end, a year later, they recruited in the fall through the spring. There was, since 08, there has been a decrease of 9%. That was surprising to me. However, Fred had a wonderful program recently where we invited our employers back to the Career Center, and we were chatting with them and thanking them for everything they've done with the Career Center and their involvement with our students. And I had a chance to talk to several accounting firm representatives, and they shared with me that suddenly they realized they didn't hire enough. That, they held steady, they just took their interns that they got to know, they didn't offer new jobs to students that came into the recruiting process, as a full-time graduating student, didn't have an internship with them. And now they're backpedaling, and they went back to try to increase their recruitment efforts through people that they had interviewed earlier in the fall, do you believe it? Or anyone that didn't get involved. So I predict it's going to come back up again. I think that the decrease is hopefully at an end, but you never know. Now these are a few extremely interesting statistics that I found. In marketing, internet marketing jobs increased from 2008 to now by 65%. Internet marketing. Joel was talking a lot about that. Social media jobs, that's in the news, right? 204% increase in the number of jobs. Huge. Small percentage of the big picture of how many jobs are out there. But if you have a specialty in it, you could develop it and relate it on a resume, there are openings. IT, we talked about this before, as a huge area of increase. Web development jobs increased by 15%. IT security jobs increased by 41%. It was mentioned earlier, the analytics increased by 94%. Huge. And within healthcare areas, quality management, which we have a master's degree in, healthcare management, which we have a master's degree in, quality management 20%, healthcare management 10%, and general operations management, which could be taken into any industry, by 16%. This was something else. I'm seeing it with my students. Federal regulatory jobs, anything regulatory now, like the compliance and the risk analysis, increased by 31%. Fortune 100 companies increased jobs by 53% from 2008 to April 2010. And large and small businesses increased jobs equally by 22%. According to these studies, there were fewer jobs for medium-sized companies. And actually, Fortune 500 companies overall decreased by 3%. The most profound statistic I found, very interesting, we happen to have a fairly new major in real estate here at the Zard School. Real estate securities analyst jobs increased from 2008 to April 2010 by 461%. The new market has to be analyzed with what's happening in real estate. So, we would love to have you consider coming to the Zard School, to Hofstra University. There is literature in the back if any of you want more information, and we still have open houses that are going on throughout the summer for any of you that wish to apply to our graduate business school. So, that's it. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a quick question about resumes. Actually, I went to the career center and I was lucky enough to get alumni to look over my resume, and I think it looks pretty on point. But with the way the economy is with layoffs, the people that looked at my resume said that you should only have one page. And with one page, my next job I get might not be as impressive, so I would have to drop a previous job that has a lot of accomplishments and is an international company that would be my most impressive employment history. How do I compensate for that? That my two current jobs might, diminish how much I've accomplished over my career.
How many years' experience do you have?
Well, I have 8 years for an international company where I was like the tax administrator for the whole U.S. And I accomplished a lot of things when it came to, like you said, regulatory, dealing with homeland security, as well as I've dealt with surety companies, as well as tax compliance. I did a lot of diverse work because it was an unusual job position. It was accounting as well as legal assistant.
But
Where
how many
now,
overall years that you would possibly be representing?
I guess 15 years.
It's okay to go to over one-page resume in professional business. It is okay, it can be a page to a page and a half, I see it all the time. One-page resumes are always recommended because it's easier for an employer. Your resume needs to be targeted, and it's possible that when you target it, or possibly do a functional resume, where you take your skills and you highlight the skills and you just do an employment history, where you list companies and job titles and dates, basically. You could get it to one page. But I work with, business professionals all the time. It would have to be a one-on-one, advisement, kind of an analysis, but I would say that the key thing will be that you're targeting the information that's relevant to the jobs you're applying to. We've stressed that tonight. So things may go away, or you just make sure you list things that are relevant, showing your skills.
Or you can put in your cover letter, pull stuff out of the cover letter that's really important to the job you're applying for. So it's always going to be a work in progress. You're never going to have a final product. It's going to keep always evolving as you progress.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question. I think one of the companies you mentioned, Computer Associates, and then I know you also mentioned a number of increase of IT jobs. I worked at Computer Associates, and I know like one time, once a year or something, you'd see Computer Associates post 60 or 70 jobs, and you said, wow, look, Computer Associates is doing all this hiring. But in actuality, all those jobs are H1 sponsored. So they have people who are in those jobs for maybe for 5, 6, 7 years. And so by law, they have to post those jobs, but they have no intention of really hiring anyone for those jobs. And I'm finding that happens, I don't know if the labor force, that happens a lot in IT, that the jobs are posted, but that's because by law they have to post them. But they never, and then not only are they posted, they're posted, like when you're saying people are being very selective now, so they're looking for a specific thing. They will put something in, I'll just use it in generic terms. We're looking for a swimming instructor that horseback rides. Right, yeah, so in other words, the only person who's gonna fit that job is the person who's currently in there, and then they will say that, oh, nobody, we didn't find anyone. So that seems to be very big in IT. So I don't know, so it's almost hard to tell, are these jobs really available, or they just, by law, they have to post them?
Yeah, there's no way of knowing, but it sounds like you're analyzing it quite well.
Well, that's exactly what's happening. And the other one is the MBAs. We're finding a lot of people who have MBAs now with this, I guess, depleted job market, that when they're applying, unless they're going for a very high-level job, if the hiring manager themselves does not have an MBA, the MBA is hurting people more than it's helping. And even, I think I went to Korea at the Department of Labor, and they said you may have to take the MBA off. So, I'm wondering, does anybody have anything to say,
I think that depends upon, the type of job that you're applying for. If you're applying for a job that clearly wants the qualifications of an MBA, it's there. If because of the job market, you then have backed off to looking for a job that's gonna pay a lot less and requires a lot less qualifications, then yes, they may feel that you are less desirable because you're gonna be there for a short period of time. And you're gonna be there only to earn the money while you're looking for something else.
But it may say MBA preferred. Now, if it says MBA required, but I've even noticed on some sites here, at one time you saw all these jobs, MBA required or master's required. Now a lot of them are saying MBA preferred, and one of the reasons is because some of the people who are now making up the job description don't really want someone coming in with an MBA.
Or for less salary.
Well,
But again, it depends upon the job. It depends upon the job, and they don't want somebody. They don't want somebody who's overqualified who's going to be frustrated in the job. They don't want you to come in and then within 6 months you're miserable, they're miserable. They want to try to match you up with a job that's appropriate for you and get you to stay for a while.
And that's why it's really important to get on-the-job training where you're going for an MBA. A lot of people go on for the MBA, and as Barbara said, they don't apply it. They're here for 2 years of studying and they're unmarketable because they have the education but not the experience to back it up. So they have to go hand in hand. It's important to think about that as well. And always keep reinventing yourself. When you see those skill sets on the jobs, make sure you're acquiring those skills to keep yourself competitive.
In general, you mentioned also maybe the salary part that
Yes.
that they're thinking about. Reminds me, I know my counterpart in New York City said all of those people who were laid off in the financial services industry, the money was so good, they assumed, okay, it's going to be a cyclical thing and it'll come back and I'll get my job back. But apparently financial firms are quite ruthless in terms of hiring back young people out of school versus somebody who even had worked for them for 4 or 5 years who had much higher salary requirements than somebody else. So unfortunately, the reality may be in some of those financial services jobs, they may go for the less experience if you have the good skills match. Just another quick comment about, there was a change in what's called the TAA, the Trade Act law last year, and it previously only applied to manufacturing jobs, and it now applies to all industry jobs, and it has been used in terms of offshoring of jobs. It was very pervasive in the financial services area and in the IT area, and they have given a number of awards lately for people who lost, and there were even, I know one case, actually it was Aero Electronics, where the ruling was on somebody who worked for a temp agency who was working for Aero Electronics, and they determined that that job was lost due to, the movement of that job offshore. And they don't just say, was your job, specifically moved somewhere else. They ask the company, what are you doing with that function now? Are you not doing that function? Oh yeah, we're doing that function, we're just not doing it here. They said, okay. And Trade Act is different because the company actually doesn't have to pay a penalty for that. But the benefits that you're entitled to are significantly better than regular unemployment insurance. So it's a reason they offer travel, relocation, some stuff about health benefits or training grants are significantly better if you were Trade Act eligible.
Yes?
What you mentioned before about having 3 to 4 targeted resumes and functional going for skills, I have just that, I have an MBA, I'm doing that. And what I run up against is, they don't look at transferable skills, they want people currently in the industry. So how can you market yourself in this environment, try to get creative, and you're running up against brick walls? I've seen it all the time, I'm doing exactly what you said. Take the job description, put in a cover letter. Send a resume, I don't. I find maybe a higher level manager in the company, very creative, very frustrating to me. I'm very creative in my approaches, and I'm hitting brick walls. Go to job fairs, try to network in healthcare. They want clinical people, not business management people, okay? They tell you that right there. So you try to do these things to try to find work, and everything is, a brick door. You're just getting slammed down every step of the way. I mean, these statistics, I'm kind of blown away. Where are they coming from? Because I'm on the job boards all the time. I'm out there networking. I have a networking card with some of my colleagues here that I know from unemployment. Same way, degree people. We go to job fairs, $8 an hour jobs. Low-level healthcare aides. Where are the high-paying jobs? They've just gone away. So somebody can address that. I mean, you say about retooling, fine, I'm not going to go for another degree. I'm degreed. I'm also a licensed teacher. They're laying off teachers. Look in the paper. Healthcare. Patterson is cutting back 22, all the hospitals are going to get affected. So I'd like to know, where are we going to find jobs? You mentioned entrepreneurs. Is that what we have to do, start a business? I mean, is that the answer? But there's so many regulations out there that even existing businesses are having trouble staying alive. So,
I think the part especially about, everybody says that businesses say it, we all say it, the transferable skills. But what I hear in the real world is that everyone, like you said, they want especially in this market, well, they always will say it. I want experience, I want somebody who does exactly, you know, what my job requires, experience doing that. Even though, you know, they might say they're willing to accept more transferable skills, they don't. When the job market gets tight enough, some of them, but not even all of them, will then accept somebody who's, you know, has good skills.
But we're not finding
I
that.
don't know what to completely say to you about, I mean, there is job growth out there, as I tried to indicate, it's not perfect, but I can go into, you know, I see it's not part of what I do on a day-to-day basis, but people send me jobs, I see job listings all the time, you know, and across the board in terms of job.
Because I'm not even on that job, that 2010 database, and I got low-level jobs at TJ Maxx Retail because I have a sales background too. Because I went through the labor department, and the smart database, it was not matching anything to my skill set. And then I go to all these job fairs, and we talk about this at the job club at the unemployment. It's like, where are the jobs for people like ourselves, professional, experienced, you know? It's disheartening, and we're trying all these things trying to pry open every door to try to find an opportunity.
Has anyone given you feedback, industry? Have you talked to someone?
Yeah, I belong to clubs, I network, I network.
Some of the clubs are good, but are you getting actual people that are in the industry in that club that are actively working, giving you feedback on your
We're right
stuff?
at the unemployment, at the one stop, out at the Hop Park job
But
club.
is there anyone there actively employed in the field you want to work and giving you advice? Are you talking to people in the industry? What area do you want to go into work?
Well, I'm a teacher, they're laying off teachers,
Okay.
okay?
Education.
I also have an MBA in sales management background and healthcare. There are no device companies here.
So the questions I provided you, take a look at those questions, find someone in healthcare, and maybe the business side of healthcare, and ask him or her for some advice. What suggestions? What do they look for? How can I get my foot in the door? Look at that template I gave you. Hopefully there's some things that can help you.
The other thing that I'll suggest is, a lot of our students have realized that the professional related associations to any industry and functional area are wonderful. Not only do they have an e-newsletter, but they often have job postings. So identifying the specific professional association and becoming a member would help you go to meetings, network, go to events, so you one-on-one meet people. You are staying current on trends in the industry because of all the news that they're sending out. And you could potentially use another member, as Fred has just suggested, for that type of advice. But pick those industries that you see some future in that you've learned about today. And that, you know, that's the trick.
So again, the networking piece is gonna be so important.
But professional associations.
And New York City is the capital of, you know, the financial world. So whether you're in marketing or accounting, there are professional groups there. My background is marketing. There's a New York chapter, the American Marketing Association, very active, tremendous amount of networking. They have job postings. They have luncheons all the time. That's true in all of the functional areas. So, I mean, we happen to be fortunate in that we're in an area where there are so many of these groups. And, you know, while it may cost something to join the group, usually if you go to the luncheon, it's, you know, $20 to go to lunch. You don't have to be a member of it.
Or
For a lot of
volunteer at
those.
that luncheon and check people in, check codes, whatever.
Right.
I think the job clubs are helpful for support, but I often find that people that are in job clubs tend to be the nature is to be very negative, and you want to keep it positive. It's easy to fall into that rut. It's good to have the support, and everyone's in together, and you're working as a team, but you can get caught. So use a job club, but also keep your aspirations a little higher. Just be aware of that, I think.
That's what the professional associations are.
Yeah, that's a good advice. There's
Down.
people, you know, everybody's in the same boat. It's great to have the support. It's good to have your moment to have venting, but don't get caught. Keep your aspirations higher, because you're going to get stuck in that level. So, you know, aim higher if you possibly can.
Yes.
I've noticed, I've been in the job market for over 25 years, and I found that I was an office manager and I did facilities and that kind of thing, and I'm finding now that the job postings are merging other jobs together with them, with the office management, which I understand, but they're like HR and accounts payable or accounting managers. And, you know, for me to go back to school at 50-something years old, it seems a little hard for me to do that. And then, like, I'm looking at a resume, I'm sending a resume anyway, because there are, you know, they want 20 things, and I have 18 of those 20 things. And it just, and I love using the internet, because you can do your cover letter, and you can just get it out very quickly, and you don't have to go to the post office, and you don't have to do that, but you get no responses. And it just drives me nuts. And it says, please do not call. So you don't know whether it's really making it there, you don't know whether it's ending up in the pile on the floor. And you see that ad, you know, on the job sites for 6 months, and you get nothing. And it just drives me nuts. And I don't know if, I know I'm not the only one.
You're not the only one. It's happening all the time. You know, resumes go to what we call the black hole, and that's why everything has been suggested to try really hard to apply through the system wherever you found it, but also go to the website and try to find people's names, or use some of the database searches that you can identify HR people or the marketing VP or whatever department it's in, to try to also apply directly to that person. And you're doing that.
But you don't.
Read the resume. Are you up to speed with all your resume?
I think I am, but you know, I've had people look at it, both professional and, you know, Tom, Dick, and Harry. But now you're talking about, can somebody like me just take a class? You know, or do you have to go and enter the program?
You can take a class on it, right?
Well, there's continuing ed at Hofstra that offers some interesting classes and workshops and seminars
And certificate programs,
and certificate programs.
which are short forms,
Yes.
but it enables you to be certified as a computer analyst or something like that. So you don't have to go through a full degree program, and there are a ton of them,
Yeah,
ton of them.
and also look for grants from the Department of Labor. Yeah, 'cause I'm on the
There were more
EDG
grants, there were
that's
some very nice grants that came out of the financial services area.
EDG.
And a number of people took, Hofstra had a very good project management program that they offered. A lot of people were very pleased with that. And they, you know, again, combined it with something where your work experience was.
Thank you.
I would also add that, you gotta remember obviously the largest companies employ the large number of people, but there's just, the majority of companies are smaller. The majority of companies do not have an HR department. The majority, therefore, they're probably, who knows how they're getting their jobs.
Well,
You know, I don't know, nobody I heard, this is out of my field,
Yeah.
mentioned Craigslist. I've heard
Oh, yeah.
people say,
People are
you know,
using it.
use Craigslist. But there are many, and I'm just saying that as a networking thing, because also the idea of being turned down because you don't have experience, maybe in a smaller firm, they would be more open and flexible. You know, they see somebody, you know, some of these things are ridiculous. You know, they say, oh, you've got to have experience in this. You know, some of those skills you can learn in weeks, you know, if not literally days, and yet they're saying they're not going to hire you based on it. But, you know, if you're in a big company and they've got 10,000 resumes in front of them, or, you know, 500 resumes. So it's hard to look for jobs in small companies just because, you know, there's 100,000 firms on Long Island. 100,000 firms. You could drive yourself crazy looking at all those small companies. But basically I'm saying, do not rule it out. Do not think about those things. Keep your antennas up all the time in terms of networks, and don't just have a preconceived idea that I'm going to work for Goldman Sachs or I'm going to work for a Citigroup. You know, I can work for like a startup, you know, a small bank, or you know, just look at your options and keep them open, especially.
If I could just say, we're going to have to stop. If anybody wants to talk to us individually afterwards, I'd be happy to stay. I just want to go back to LinkedIn again. I would guarantee almost nobody in here has maximized the use of LinkedIn. You can find companies on there. You've got, if you've got multiple degrees or credentials, or if you've worked in multiple places, it's a weighted network. Just on these Hofstra groups that I participate in, there's a mailing every single week, multiple times a week from each group. They're talking about occasions where they're getting together to network. There are some people who may be involved in personnel who have job openings that they want to give the first crack to people who are from Hofstra. Use places like LinkedIn. all right? Go take a look at that Fortune article, look at the 8 examples they give of the LinkedIn page and how they improved it. All right, it's a tremendous resource. If you go to the search box, you can look for people, you can look for companies. I mean, it's just a tremendous resource.
Well, people are at those companies for networking purposes.
Right.
That's great.
Right.
I want to mention 2 things if you don't mind. Craigslist, that brought up, but like all these job things, I mean, Craigslist is out there, but a lot of people, there's no check on the internet. Nobody's patrolling it. It's up to you as the job seeker to do your research. So make sure the company's legitimate. Never give your social security number, never give your credit card information. Be very aware of fraud. I think in the type of recession and the tight job market and recession, people are more likely to take advantage of people. So be very aware of that as a job seeker. Make sure the company's legitimate. Make sure your interviews in a professional setting. Don't meet somebody at an apartment or a non-public place. Just keep yourself safe in that process. Just be aware of that. And also, if you choose to go back for classes or take a course, and to leave, you can write it off for your tax purposes. Check with your accountant. So if you're taking on a class or going back for an MBA or doing whatever, keep your receipts. Keep track of that for your end of the year for tax purposes.
I have one other thought. You know, just for example, let's say you introduced yourselves tonight and you met 3 new people and you find out where people have worked or work. I suggest you collect information of everyone you know and do an employer database of where people work that you know, and keep it going every time you meet somebody. Okay? Why? Referrals in. So that when you see an opening, and maybe target the companies. Watch those specific companies for openings on a regular weekly basis. And when you see one, make sure you connect to the person that you met one day to see if they would also refer you in.
Does anybody?
We're gonna have to stop. If you wanna talk to us individually, we're gonna
I'm
need
just
you.
gonna comment, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback what you're saying, and LinkedIn, there is a function on LinkedIn where you can follow the companies and it will show you who has left, who's come on, who's promoted.
Good.
Tell you
Perfect.
where there may be an opening.
I was going to say that also you can do an RSS feed. You can set up your technology so if job openings come up, it'll email you as well. You can do a search agent on some of these engines so things come up, you can get targeted emails when things come up as well.
We wish you all good luck.